Welcome to episode 11 of Back to Beverly, and thanks for tuning in. My next guest has spent his professional life in the PR industry, and throughout his career has represented some of the biggest celebrities in the world, including the likes of Mel Gibson, Robert Downey Jr., Jamie Foxx, Caitlyn Jenner, and Jerry Bruckheimer, among a long list of other stars. He is currently the chairman of Rogers & Cowan PMK, which is the largest entertainment PR agency in the world, following the merger of the two firms in 2019. I've been lucky enough to know him much of my life, and really enjoyed getting this unique opportunity to dive a little deeper into his life and career, some of the clients he currently represents, his thoughts on Hollywood and the media today, and so much more. I hope you like my interview with Alan Nierob. Here it is.
Are we good in the control room to roll? Okay, cool. So what do Steve Martin, Denzel Washington, Mel Gibson, Caitlyn Jenner, J-Lo, Shakira, Beyonce, Robert Downey Jr., Sarah Silverman, Jamie Foxx, Chris Pratt, and I have in common? We've all been represented or coached by my guest today, Alan Nierob, the chairman of Rogers & Cowan, PMK, and a Beverly High grad, class of 75.
Well, that's an interesting list of clients,
Yeah.
some of whom are current, some of whom are past,
Yeah.
and some of whom will probably be back in the future.
Well, I'm glad there was none that weren't actually clients. My research department actually hit on them.
They at one point,
Yeah.
either I represent or represented those, yeah.
So Alan was a guest on my original show back when I was in high school, and it's an honor and a pleasure to welcome him back to Beverly. Alan, thanks for being here.
It is a pleasure to be here, and it's always a pleasure to sit with my pal Dillon Curtis,
Well, I appreciate that.
son of Robbie.
I don't know how much he had to pay you to say that, but I appreciate it.
That's all right.
How does it feel to be back on campus?
You know, it always looks smaller when I'm here.
Yeah.
But it's like anything, like the house you grew up in, if you go back, it
Right.
looks smaller.
Well, and I feel like when we were in high school age, we were much smaller, so it felt bigger, and now we're bigger and it feels smaller, maybe.
Yeah, exactly.
What do you remember most about those days? I know you lettered in basketball, and then you corrected me earlier and told me football and baseball as well. Were you any good at? Were you a good athlete?
Yeah, I was a good athlete.
Yeah.
I don't think I was a great athlete. I wasn't the all-star on each team, but I was good enough to make the team and good enough to kick ass.
Yeah.
Against my colleagues and pals on the team.
And I
And
understand.
make them better, make the team better.
And I understand my research staff told me earlier that the teams were pretty good. Can you share some of those memories of back in the day?
Oh man, let me tell you.
Yeah.
Class of 75 teams, those sports teams were awesome. We were
Yeah.
all league first team in football, one league. We won basketball, went to the quarterfinals of CIF.
Wow.
And we're all still buddies.
And some of
Most
your-
of us are still friends.
And some of your classmates went on to play college sports.
College
Pretty big.
sports and some professional, and you know, they're just great guys and they were great athletes and they are great friends.
Yeah. Can you talk a little bit about who some of those teammates were and why that group was so special?
Well, you got to understand the way the system is set up in Beverly Hills. We had the 4 elementary schools feeding into the high school, and they had an all-star team in basketball from the 6th grade on.
Mm-hmm.
So we all played together, even though we had Mike Suter and Mike Higginbotham, Brad Terrell, David Gross were at Horace Mann.
Yeah.
I was at Beverly Vista with Steve Craig, Randall Brody, El Rodeo had their group of guys. Hawthorne had their group of guys. Never as good of athletes as we were, of course, at Beverly Vista.
So you were, of course.
Beverly Vista was the best athletic school there was in the district.
That must have changed in the early 2000s when I was there, because I seem to recall Rodeo taking the lead there. But
Really? No, we always had intramurals, which was a great thing in football. We'd have flag football, we'd have softball, we'd have basketball, and we always, Beverly.
It's interesting, though, and it sounds like they got that right back in the day, because when I was there, I don't know that we had a 6th grade all-star team, and so it sounds like you guys were developing some sort of a chemistry prior to coming to high school.
That's where my point was is that they brought in a coach, a guy named Bob Welsh, and he coached us where we actually knew the high school's offense and defense, let's say in basketball. So we actually, by the time we got into school, we were already running this. So it was actually, obviously not as proficiently as as we did with different coaching and as we grew older and matured, but it was a similar offense. So we actually knew the program before we even got to the high school. And it was great. I remember one time at the CIF playoffs, the football team, the varsity football team here at Beverly took 3 players from the district. That was Steve Craig, myself, and Steve DeCure, to travel with them to Dos Pueblos up near Santa Barbara for their playoff game, just to get an experience to go with the team. It was really an honor, and it was a blast, actually.
So tell me a little bit about what else you did here besides cut class.
Cut class. I got almost straight A's, but you can get straight A's in cut class too, by the way. No, it was very social.
Yeah.
I mean, first of all, you're done at 1 o'clock because you're always playing sports.
Right.
You have that break before practice, which usually started at 3. So we'd all go out to lunch together. We would, when we cut class a little, we would go and, we'd either hit Piece of Pizza up on Santa Monica Boulevard here at McDonald's, or go down to Shakey's Bunch of Lunch down on Fairfax and Olympic, and just we'd go. There's always a group of 5, 6, 7 of us, always going together.
You guys would go all the way from the high school to Fairfax and Olympic for lunch.
Bunch of lunch, all you can eat for X amount of couple dollars.
Yeah.
It was all about taking the money you had saved up from whatever you were doing, and spending it on your food.
It seems far to me, because when we were in high school, we would just walk down the street to Ronnie's and have lunch, which was obviously near and dear to your heart.
They didn't exist then.
Sure, of
but
course.
we would be at 7 in the morning at Nate and Al's.
Okay.
Before school, before we walked to school, we'd be at Nate and Al's 7 in the morning, and then head over to school. A few of us that lived nearby.
Yeah. So after Beverly, it's off to UCLA. Go Bruins. What did you study there, and did it help you prepare for your career?
Go Bruins, for sure. I wasn't going to go. Actually, UCLA was my 3rd choice.
Interesting. What were the first 2?
Stanford and Berkeley. And Stanford, Dad, I want to be a doctor. Stanford.
Right.
And then Berkeley, just because it seemed to be at that time the top UC campus, and it could get me away from home. But then UCLA, I had a baseball tryout there with arranged through someone local here named Buddy Brandt, who knew Coach Glenn Mickens. And it was Gary Adams and Glenn Mickens were coaching at the time. So I played with them that summer and part of my freshman year at UCLA, and it was way above my pay grade. Those guys were good. But I umpired a couple of the scrimmages, and then joined a fraternity and got that athletic need I had throughout my college 4 years.
Playing intramurals and whatnot.
Oh, yeah. And by the way, when you're playing intramurals at a school like UCLA, you're playing against guys who were 1st and 2nd team all-league football, all-league basketball. We did win the championship in basketball, though, my fraternity, which was great.
So after 4 years at Westwood High, go Trojans, fight on.
No, man. The University of Spoiled Children?
Yeah.
I'm a Bruin, man. I grew up here in town, and I grew up with SE and UCLA, and I'm a diehard Bruin.
Well, it's been a nice start for the football teams this year, for sure.
What's great, I am actually glad to see USC back in the conversation. It helps everybody, and moving into the Big Ten will help. It'll certainly get UCLA out of debt in 2 years, which is nice.
Yeah.
But no, the better the teams are locally and in the division, the better the competition is, and I think it'll help recruiting. And we're a basketball school.
Yeah,
really.
yeah. How did you end up in the entertainment business?
I noticed you don't want to talk basketball at USC.
Well,
you just shut that down. You just shut that down. You went real quick for the football, but basketball, you didn't want to go there, did you?
It was an Elite 8 run there a couple years ago. SC was hanging pretty tough.
And then what happened?
Yeah.
Okay.
We all know.
But back to UCLA.
Yeah.
So it was a great opportunity. I remember I was living at home my freshman year, and it was actually really difficult academically, and I really didn't have problems academically. Before, I thought in high school was pretty easy, and I was like, oh man, this isn't good. But at one point I was thinking, man, I should probably reconsider.
Mm-hmm.
But
The whole college thing?
yeah, no, UCLA.
Oh.
I just thought this is really difficult. I don't really care about Econ 3 and Astronomy 10. But I stuck with it, and luckily I did, because my sophomore year was my best year ever. I took a communication studies class, an introductory, and just hit it. It just, something clicked for me. And now it's a matter of trying to get into the major. There were not, at that time, it's an interdisciplinary program that I think they accepted like 50 out of 450 applicants, and the school didn't give it a lot of money. It was, you know, it was a little artsy and a little this and a little that, but it just clicked, and it clicked on a lot of levels. They did cover legal, they covered some media and interpersonal communications, and I really hit it off. I'm still friends with the guy who was the TA, who actually, my legal professor ended up running Annenberg for many years, Jeff Cowan, who I still see once in a while, and Jeff Cole, who was my TA, did a lot of projects.
Yeah.
USC took all the good professors and just paid them a lot more money because they're a private school,
Right.
you know, as opposed to UCLA that is, you know, a public university.
Yeah. So it clicked for you. Sophomore year. You end up in the communications major, and then from there, you sort of end up in the entertainment business.
Yeah, not necessarily. I joined a fraternity my sophomore year, so I was really busy, but I actually did the best year I ever had academically in my life was my sophomore year because I was just budgeting my time accordingly. Yep. And I was interested. I found something I was interested in. But I had to get in the major, and I remember they were going to get rid of the major, and I was there on Bruin Walk. I got like 1,000 signatures not to get rid of the major, and I think it came to the attention of the chairman of the department, and the woman who was my speech teacher, Marty Gregory, who's a mentor of mine. I'd love to debate. I love debating her. Yeah. She was tough. She used to write political speeches for candidates, and she was brilliant and combative, which I loved. So I got into the major, and then I started to take their classes, upper division classes, junior and senior year. And there was time, I was thinking I have to graduate. I need like 4 or 8 units. Right. I might as well get an internship. Oh. And I didn't really know what I wanted to do, but I was in one of my classes, and the girl sitting next to me was really cute. Her name was Kathy Smith. And it's funny, I told this story. Mm-hmm. I gave the commencement speech like 10 years ago or something there. And I told this story, and some of her sorority sisters were there because their daughters were graduating. Sure. But she said, "Oh, I'm interning at this PR firm called Rogers and Cowan. They're really cool. They got all these big music acts and da da." Yeah. And I'm like, "Oh, wait a second. If I could get an internship there, I could probably get a date." Yeah. Well, I got the internship and never got the date.
Well, all these years later, I think something worked out.
Well, I'm still there, and she was gone after 2 months.
So. Fascinating story how you ended up there. I love that.
I told these kids when I gave the speech, I said, you know, you all think it's very like strategic, how to get a job, how to this and that, how to apply, how to do this. Well, that was my strategy. It wasn't that strategic, but it was effective.
Yeah, chasing a pretty girl, and you ended up.
There you are.
So then you cut your teeth in the PR industry working there. Internship led to your first.
I got hired in like a sporting event department there, not very interesting, and then I got, the project was over, and I was hoping to get another job within the company, and I ended up working for one of the vice presidents, a guy named George Curvey, who used to work in our European London office, and we started the talent department that they had there at the time with 4 clients. Wow. And I think it was 2 years later, we had like 44. Wow. And we just built it from there. And he was a great mentor, and he let me do a lot of things I probably shouldn't have done, but it was beneficial.
What was it? How do you build is it just word of mouth? Or are you out there pitching yourself to clients?
It depends. You're always pitching yourself. I mean, certainly in those days,
sure.
You were pitching, you were begging, you were buying lunches, you were doing everything you could to get to meet people, and it's then word of mouth. You get referral business once you sort of establish a reputation, and a good reputation. Then word of mouth, and you get a lot of referrals from business managers or lawyers or agents. Yeah, they call you, say if you're interested in meeting such and such, and taking a meeting, and then you got to sell yourself and the company.
Sort of snowballs from there.
Yeah, but you're pitching business. I always believe if you want to go after business, you should go after it and pitch it properly. Yeah, just like going after setting up an interview for a client. Mm-hmm.
So for those listening, what exactly is PR? And I think hearing it from the expert himself is a nice thing.
I had to explain this to my father, who was a plumbing contractor, like 2 years into this, and he goes, "All I see you do is talk on the phone and eat lunches." And I said, well, yeah, Dad, that's kind of what we do. But, we're the intermediary between the client and the media, kind of like the gatekeeper. And, but people don't realize, even today, currently in the business, is the media and us, we're on the same team as the media. Our job is actually help them get access or get information, or at least get correct information if they're interested in checking.
Right.
So we're on the same team, and that's really been a lot of my success, is really having strong media contacts and relationships, because the best PR person is not the one who gets you on the cover of Time magazine. It's the one that doesn't have something printed about your client that will probably really negative and could destroy their career.
And do you sometimes butt heads or with the media when the truth might not be what they want to print because it's not going to get the clicks or it's not going to be the headline grab?
Oh, butt heads would be being judicious and being. I do more than that. If they knowingly know something's incorrect and they still go with it. I mean, we do have libel laws here, but they're really hard here in the United States to get. But I spend a lot of my time on the phone with litigators who go after the media legally.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't do it legally, but I can usually, with my relationships, will go to someone high enough to squash something if I can prove they're wrong.
And do you see that a lot with the mainstream media, or is it more tabloids that are going out and printing that sort of stuff? Or
You know what? There's such a blurred line right now, Dillon. The digital age has just clouded that whole world of media up, where it's really who's the quickest, who's the fastest, and we'll correct it later.
Right. Interesting. So taking a step back a little bit, your first client, I believe, was Victoria Principal, if I have that right. Is that correct?
Victoria Principal was one of my first clients.
Okay.
Yeah.
Who went on to star in movies, television, and later become very successful in the cosmetics business. Can you tell us a little bit about how you got her as a client and some of the big names that followed?
Well, it was interesting. She, in a way, she chose me. But I'll explain that. She was already she had been at the agency way back, I think it was the early 70s. She did a film called Judge Roy Bean with Paul Newman. And Paul Newman was one of the longtime clients of the company. Obviously, I was still in high school at that time. And so she came back, but she got this little role in a little show called Dallas.
Oh, a little show.
And I was working for George Crevet as his assistant, and she actually was a client of George's, but I was the assistant.
Got it.
So I was 21, at that time 22 years old probably. Yes, 22, and and I just, when you want to excel in business or in anything you're doing, you are passionate and you offer your services and do whatever you can. And these other long-time executives, they make a lot more money, but they don't really want to work as hard. So George welcomed me to do as much as I could on the clients. And Victoria was one, and she literally, I remember being at her house covering an interview, and she said, I'll make you a deal. You work on me, and I will work for you. Meaning it'll be a very collaborative relationship. You represent me, I'll take care of you. And you know what? She opened up a lot of doors for me just by representing someone of that caliber at that time.
Right.
And she also became one of my best friends and the godmother of one of my sons.
That's awesome.
But I met her. I used to I didn't meet her. She used to bring my sister and my niece. My niece was probably 2 years old, 3 years old. And we had a dry cleaning business up in Beverly Glen. And Victoria lived up in Beverly Glen, and she used to bring them gifts every weekend when she'd go up to bring her dry cleaning in. And so she actually was friends with my sister before I ever met her.
Oh, wow.
In fact, there was one moment where they went out one night.
Yeah.
I was still living with my parents. I was in high school. Yeah. And they had partied a little much, and my dad had had a card game, and I was asleep. And they came in because they were hungry. They had the munchies.
Yeah.
And they came racing into the house, and they woke me up, and I'm, I didn't know what was going on, but that was literally one of the first times I actually met Victoria.
How long after you started working with her did it take you to connect the dots? Or did you know right away that she
No,
would-
I knew.
Oh, okay.
I knew, but she had already had a career in film,
Got it.
and she was already a client of the company, so she already had somewhat of a profile. But this was a great opportunity for her, and I just jumped on it, and you know, we both benefited greatly from it.
I mentioned it in the open, but you are obviously now the chairman of Rogers & Cowan PMK, which I believe is the largest PR firm in the world.
Largest entertainment PR firm.
Okay,
in the world.
entertainment PR
Yeah.
firm. Can you talk a little bit about your journey to becoming the chairman?
Yeah, well, you know, I always I love to say to new staff members, I started as an intern. And the only difference now, when I was an intern, I wasn't being paid. The only difference now is I'm chairman and I'm still not being paid. Get used to it in the entertainment business.
Yeah.
People love titles and they love it, but you know, go, you know, do the work.
Sure.
Do the work. You know, I was able to. I just love it. I've never been bored a day in my life at work, and who can say that? Not a lot of people can say that. They say, wow, why didn't you go out on your own? And trust me, there was maybe 4,000 times that I was going to go out on my own.
Sure.
But it just didn't make sense. Timing wasn't right. And I liked that collaborative environment it was a family-run business.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it was Rogers & Cowan, which was the largest in the world entertainment-wise. PMK was probably second.
Yeah.
And it was just like a family-run business, and it was crazy. Like, you know, you have family issues, you have issues all the time at work, but it was interesting to me, and I loved going to work, and I still love going to the office. I love it. It's so much fun, and there's a lot of energy, and you have challenges, and you can be creative, and that's what you want out of a job, you know? You don't need to make the most money. It's not like a competition where, you know, friends go, oh, I'm making more money here.
Right.
Good, go make as much money as you can.
Yeah.
But yeah, how much is that happiness worth? And how much is it worth to raise a family and be there for your family?
True.
You give up a lot in salary,
Yeah.
and it's worth every penny. So, you know, it's not. I've never been competitive when it comes to that. I'm competitive in sports, though.
Yeah.
I don't like to lose.
Well, your Bruins are 6-0. The Dodgers last night, a tough one.
Yeah, it was a tough one, but
Yeah.
I'm sticking with them.
Yeah.
They're not going to disappoint us.
In 2019, you merged with PMK, so Rogers & Cowan became Rogers & Cowan PMK, and you know, you guys obviously represent a lot of entertainers, but also big brands, Microsoft, Pandora, Samsung, to name a few. Do you personally deal with your clients still, or are you more of a big picture guy now?
I love being hands-on, so I still deal with, like Saturday, I'll be covering Jerry Bruckheimer, who produced Top Gun.
Yeah.
He's doing a lot of interviews now.
Beverly Hills Cop, I think he's bringing back.
It's already in production.
Wow.
Eddie Murphy's right
That's-
around the corner, man.
I can't wait.
Eddie Murphy's right around the corner. Who's another client of ours, by the way, Eddie Murphy. Yeah, they're doing that, and then they're going to do a Formula One movie
Wow.
with Lewis Hamilton as a consultant and producer.
Sweet. So you're
With
still in the
Brad Pitt.
you're still in the trenches then with your
I
clients.
love the trenches. I can't stand the admin side. You got to do it though.
Yeah.
To run a department and run part of the company, but I love the nuts and bolts.
Yeah.
I love getting on the phone with an editor or writer and being creative and getting something that everybody's interested in. You're interested in reading it or
Yeah.
seeing it.
Right.
They're interested in the interview. The client's interested because it's a good interviewer. I mean, that to me is a success, and it really is it's satisfying
Yeah.
to see it come together from start to finish.
And what does that entail? So Saturday you'll be covering Jerry. Is there an event that you'll be there with him, or
He's doing a big interview that will contribute to the success of his. I mean, there's probably not another producer on the planet that's as successful as Jerry Bruckheimer.
Well, he's had the brilliant idea to bring back some of the biggest hits of the '80s, right?
And he had the biggest hits of the '80s.
Right.
So, you know,
Yeah. And look forward to that.
and not to mention, 4 or 5 TV shows on the air at different networks. I mean, CSI, you know.
Yeah, God, growing
a
up, those were the
little
best.
franchise.
Yeah, the best. So, how do you handle what I can only assume is an extremely diverse group of personalities and situational needs between all your different clients?
Everybody's different. That's what makes it interesting.
Yeah.
You know, it's not like you plug in a formula and just let it go. Everybody's different. And you're dealing with people, and you have a human aspect to it. You know, you have people, you know, make mistakes as they're maturing in life, and they make mistakes in their relationships. They make mistakes with their kids. I mean, every area of their lives. It's just like you and me and everyone else. I mean, they're human, and you have to treat it as such, because we've lost a lot of great publicity opportunities because of something going on that was a personal matter that you had to just sort of cut loose.
Sure. Do you play therapist sometimes with your clients? I mean, when they're going through things or whether they have whatever it is, I mean, you have to put on a different hat sometimes?
That is one of the many hats you wear from day one. And it's great because, I mean, when you travel with people, you really get to know them, and a lot of times the job warrants traveling. And, you know their families, and you know their significant others, and you know their kids, and it's like, I mean, for example, I mean, Denzel Washington's a longtime client. John David Washington's a client of ours. Look how successful he's become, and their other kids are so successful in the business, and they're just rising up. And to see these kids who used to go and watch their football games when they were 8, Robert Wagner and his kids. I mean, it's just, I love that because you've known these people so long.
Yeah.
And it's such a pleasure to participate in that growth. And but it does affect certain things that we do or choose not to do.
Sure.
For clients.
Is it hard to keep the friendship aspect different from the business aspect, or does the friendship also sort of benefit the business aspect of it?
I always try and tell our staff, they're not your friend, they're a client.
Yeah.
It's a business relationship. That being said, when you do travel many years with people, I mean, obviously you become closer on a personal level, and you share, things with your kids. I remember working out, Denzel Washington, we had to go to the Venice Film Festival in Italy. But his son, John David, was playing football at Morehouse. So we arranged, the studio had a private plane. Yeah. We arranged to stop in Atlanta, go to the Morehouse game, go to the Venice Film Festival, and come back for the next game the next weekend on our way home.
Jeez.
So, but I totally get that.
Right.
And I totally get, I can't do this because I'm coaching my kid. Having coached my kids and other kids here in the community, it was always, I can't go because I'm coaching.
Yeah, right.
You got to prioritize.
Well, we were lucky to have you coaching growing up.
Hey, listen, I had a good group.
Yeah. We touched on it a bit earlier, but about who, being quickest to publish and stuff, but how has social media changed the public relations world, and is it for the better?
I don't think it's for the better. I do think it's people are sloppy, as they all just want to be first, and they don't care if they get it right. Yeah. The majority, the legitimate media is competing with tabloid media, and listen, they have to get advertising too. And I mean, look at the magazine world. It's shrunk almost nearly to nothing. More money's going to the digital version of magazines now than print versions. And it's all because advertising dollars have dried up. It's kind of like streaming services versus the big networks.
Yeah.
You can see the audience erosion, and the ad rates are lower, and they're moving elsewhere.
Moving on, yeah.
So it's hard because our success is to always control the narrative. And you have people that just aren't patient to wait for an answer. But again, it's about relationships. If you have a good enough relationship, they're going to wait. Because if they don't wait, they're blocked. They're done.
Blacklisted.
Good luck.
Yeah.
Good luck. You'll have 15 minutes and then you're done.
Right. Interesting.
So as I say, it's a symbiotic relationship. We're all on the same team.
Yeah.
If you play it and you're honest, you're going to be around for a long time. But if you're not, everybody knows it real quickly.
Yeah. And the folks that have lasted long, I imagine, know that practice, right? That
absolutely. Absolutely they do.
You are known as sort of the crisis management expert in PR, and you're often the first call when things go badly for a celebrity. Can you give us some examples of what's required to put out those fires that we've sort of maybe touched on a little bit? And have you ever turned down any celebrities that maybe are in the midst of something that give you a call?
I'll answer both questions. Let's take the first one. I always like New Year's Eve, New Year's Day, I just pray my phone doesn't ring, man, because it's like, who's calling me from jail?
Right.
Unfortunately, we usually shouldn't be the first call. Sometimes we are. The lawyer first, but or the lawyer will call us. We work hard at that, but usually it's for existing clients. I'm really not that interested, and have turned down a lot of business from people that have done something wrong and need rehabilitation that weren't clients preceding that. Because I know who the client is, I know the relationship, I know, everyone makes mistakes.
Sure.
No one wants to be judged by the worst moment of their life.
Yeah.
Especially when they have a 10, 20, 30-year career.
Yeah.
So you got to be strategic, and I have partners in the company and staff that if they're not supportive and behind it, it's really hard to take it on. And I've had to turn down a lot of business that. And I always ask, well, what do you want out of this? What do you want? And if it's just to sell another album, I could care less.
Yeah.
It's just not that interesting. If you feel like you have an issue. I mean, listen. How many times, we have clients who are in AA, alcoholics, drug addicts, recovering, hopefully most of them. And you have to be, considerate, and you have to understand that there's a disease here, and what you do, you don't throw someone, and you certainly don't throw someone away when they're down.
Right. Well, and you've been part of two of the biggest turnaround stories, at least that I can remember, in Robert Downey Jr. and Mel Gibson too.
Yeah.
Where they both, were at their lowest point.
One's a recovering drug addict,
Yeah.
one's a recovering alcoholic.
Yeah.
Real simple, but great guys.
And were they both your clients prior to having their issues?
Absolutely.
And you stuck by their side?
Well, Downey, no, but Downey also was an addict since he was young.
Yeah.
So I didn't know him then. I did take him on long before. It's a blur in terms of, but long before he went to jail.
Yeah.
But there was also a process where I took him on and didn't charge him for quite a while because he couldn't afford it, because he couldn't get a job. But I knew he had talent. And see, there's a perfect example of relationships. His agent, Ed L'Amato, allowed me to work on a lot of his clients. Mel Gibson, Denzel Washington, Matthew McConaughey, Downey, there were a couple others. He was he was probably the best agent in the business, period, in the history of the business.
Impressive list.
I don't think I'll get a lot of arguments on that one.
Yeah, for sure.
But again, once you do well with one of the clients, then he sets up meeting for others when they have a need.
Sure.
And that's why, it's like, I'm not going to turn my back on someone when they're down.
Yeah.
That's not who I am, or hopefully no one at my company is.
Yeah. And I imagine that's what earns you trust forever, right? You become the guy.
Yeah, it's still a business, Dillon.
True.
You say trust forever, I don't buy it.
Yeah.
No, it's a business, and you know what? Sometimes, someone's got to be blamed if a career goes south.
Right.
So it's never the actor's fault.
Right, of course not, right.
It's always the representatives.
Yeah. You talked a little bit about your friends at Beverly earlier, but some other ones, including Benny Medina, whose real-life experience was the basis for the original Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, and Brad Terrell, who's the Chief Communications Officer at APA. Do your paths ever cross with former Beverly grads, friends, and what does that look like in a business
Well,
sense?
just the two you mentioned.
Yeah.
Benny and I worked for years with Jennifer Lopez.
Wow.
Benny brought me Jennifer Lopez. I mean, I had to earn it, but he opened the door for it. And we had a great relationship. I still see Benny all the time. I still have a great relationship with Benny. Brad Terrell worked with me at Rogers and Cowan.
Oh, wow.
That's how he started in the PR business.
Yeah.
And I've never lost touch with him throughout each of his jobs.
Is it mostly just hanging and talking about the good days, or are you actually got to get some work done?
No, Brad and I will call with current issues.
Okay.
And I have clients that are at APA.
Yeah.
And when he was at IC, I had clients there, and I had clients at Paradigm when he was there. So, and when he worked at Fox. So the great thing is you trust. There's an automatic trust. And you can cut through the bull. Here's what I need. Okay, we know the client's out of their mind.
Uh-huh.
So what do we do about it?
Right.
How do we fix this problem? So you can, if you can trust the people you're working with, you're way ahead of the game.
And do you think that trust stems from having gone to Beverly with those guys?
100%. Listen, I'm in the showers with these guys every day after practice.
Right.
If you can't trust them, then what can you do?
That's a good point.
I mean, we grew up together. Our parents knew each other. It's easy, in fact.
I've talked about it a little bit on other episodes, but the Beverly connection is really special in that it runs very deep, right? And it's exactly to that point.
Absolutely. And then, having been involved with youth sports in Beverly Hills with the Little League and the Basketball League, suddenly you know the parents of these kids. And they're a lawyer in the business, or they're an agent, or they're running a studio. Or I remember in our basketball league, Bob Iger was coaching his kid.
Oh, wow.
He's chairman of Disney.
Yeah.
And I'm like, and I had a mandatory coaches seminar right down the alley here in the math science building. And it's Sunday morning at 9 o'clock, and there comes Bob Iger.
Wow.
I'm like, Bob,
Yeah.
what are you doing here? He goes, well, you said it was mandatory. But, you know, the fact that these parents take their time and away from what they're doing
Right.
to coach their kids, I think it's just wonderful.
Special.
It's really special.
So you just touched on it, but I know that you were one of the founders of the Beverly Hills Basketball League, which has given tens of thousands of kids a structured place to play organized ball on the West Side. And I don't believe before that, I don't know where you would play basketball, maybe Cheviot Hills or...
Well, it's really the brainstorm of Bruce Horowitz,
Uh-huh.
and there were a couple other people, and then they brought me into it in the first year, after the first year, and it was just a great opportunity for the kids in this community. I think they were all playing at Rancho Park.
Yeah, it must have been, right?
And then they was getting too busy there, and they were getting shut out, and there was nowhere to play. And we know what happens when there's
Yeah.
nowhere to play.
So it was some
Kids
dads,
get in trouble.
Yeah, some dads coming together to say we should put together.
Yeah, and you know, and there were community leaders, and we all sort of dug in and did everything.
Yeah.
We wore every hat. We did everything, including selling popcorn and selling tickets at
Yeah.
pancake breakfast or whatever. But it still exists, and it's wonderful. There's an executive committee
Okay.
now that
You're
exists,
still involved?
and I'm still involved
Very
in
cool.
that.
Yeah.
I'm still on the board of the Little League, although I don't know why.
Yeah.
Only because I don't offer as much now as I used to.
Sure.
But it's up to them.
Yeah.
If they want me on, I'm not going to say no to them. If they don't, I'm
Yeah.
totally in.
I always
I
thought it was
respect that.
cool growing up, being able to play basketball on the court that was featured in It's a Wonderful Life, that was known, worldwide.
Isn't it? And everybody knows the swim gym.
Yep, and when you tell people that your high school or the court you played on growing up was that court, and it just clicks in their mind, they say, "What?
Absolutely.
I can't believe it." Yeah,
Absolutely. But also just going in there, I can smell the chlorine right now.
right. Yeah, it's just permeates.
And you always thought you can jump higher there.
Uh-huh.
Always thought you could jump higher at the swim gym.
So besides the basketball league and the Little League, you were also instrumental in founding the Beverly High Athletic Alumni Association, recognizing athletes from the past by inducting them into the Hall of Fame, also raising money for the athletic department. Can you talk a little bit about how the BHAAA came together, and how do you find so much time in your day to not only support your clients but also, create all these amazing organizations?
Well, I just really feel it's important that the kids today get the opportunity that we got.
Mm-hmm.
And it's much more difficult today. I mean, Steve Fenton started that, and he came to me and a few others to start this BHAAA. And it's just a way to raise money, because this school, everyone thinks Beverly Hills High is unlimited funds. Well, it's not. So to raise money to improve the facilities and to make it easier and better for the coaches and the athletes, the student athletes, to participate. If it's just buying them new uniforms,
Right.
or new equipment, or redoing the weight room, or redoing the locker room, whatever the coaches and the athletic director needs, we try and make available. And it's been great. It's been a huge success, and we're seeing obviously a lot of changes going on over there now, and hopefully they'll all be better and easier, and more kids will show up.
Yeah. No, I know. It's when I was there, it must have I don't know if you remember what year you guys launched it, but we were getting new golf uniforms, new golf bags. I mean, there was all kinds of great perks that came with playing sports at Beverly.
Yeah, and that
Shows
was part of
directly
the
because-
incentive to
right.
get the student athlete involved.
Yeah.
I'm involved with the Boys and Girls Clubs of America, and it's always like, what those kids do between 3 and 6 is where they really get into trouble if they don't have a place to go.
Interesting.
And the sports here allows these kids to participate, and also
Yeah.
the team sports are
Right.
great. There's no class that they don't offer that class,
Yeah.
and that's a really important class.
Your two sons, Jacob and Josh, went to Beverly. Did they follow in your athletic footsteps, and what was that like, seeing the next generation walk the halls here at
Yeah, my whole
Beverly?
family,
Yeah.
my nephews, my niece, my 2 boys, they both, I think they played a little football initially, and then they realized that wasn't going to happen, and I'm sort of happy about
Thankful for it, yeah.
But they ended up playing baseball,
Nice.
and just loving sports, and they've continued to love sports through college and then through their professional lives.
Yeah, I know we were talking earlier, but Josh is is producing documentaries now, sports documentaries?
He's not producing.
Oh, okay.
He's whatever they call him, but I'm sure he's getting coffee
Uh-huh.
and doing a lot more. He's actually doing a lot of research.
Yeah.
He finished a year and a half on the Lakers' current documentary series on Hulu called Legacy, the true story of the Lakers, and it's been a great experience for him where he's continued to work. He was hired by the production company on the non-scripted content area, so he's going to be doing a lot of sports and music documentaries,
Sweet.
which he seemed to really love. And it's anytime you see your kid passionate about something,
Right.
you're like, good, this is good.
Yeah.
And then Jacob, went to Michigan and was a assistant college scout for the personnel department at the San Francisco 49ers for a few years, and then found a job at ESPN, moved to New York, and working with the NFL Countdown show.
And is going to be in Mexico City doing
Wherever the Monday night
Yeah.
game is, they travel,
That's
and
cool.
luckily, when they're in LA,
Yeah.
I get to see them, or if I'm in New York, I get to see them. But I think his stop on the way back to New York from Mexico City, he'll be spending a few days here, which is always great to see him, and I get to see his friends too that also grew up at our house.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I love seeing my kids' friends.
Well, we barely scratched the surface today, and I'd love to have you back maybe in another 13 years. What do you say? Yeah.
$10.
But yeah, no, in
See
all
how cheap
honesty,
I am?
yeah, it would be great to have you back for the first Three-Timers Club of Back to Beverly.
Well, I could be like the Steve Martin of SNL.
There you go.
There you go.
Yeah.
I want to be like the guy who's has more shows here. It'd be nice to see any of them, though.
Yeah,
We need to archive this
Well,
stuff.
we're going to dig through the archives to find the original. But before I let you go, obviously you counsel people sometimes at their lowest point. What is advice that you offer to your clients when they're in a tough patch, or what would you offer to the next Alan Nierob?
Well, first of all, you will get through it. It's going to be okay.
Yeah.
But how do we get from here to here? How do we get? Let's go to A to B, not A to Z.
Yeah.
One step at a time, one day at a time, and let's figure this out and see how best to offer a path to success.
Is it hard to get them to see that, just the baby steps?
It is, because everyone wants a quick fix.
Right.
And a lot of times there's not a quick fix. But the smart ones get it.
Yeah.
They get it, and they take advice, and they participate in the process, and they come out ahead. And it's so rewarding and wonderful to see that success story.
I can see why you never had a boring day at work.
Never have a boring day. I just wonder when that phone rings at 3 in the morning.
Yeah.
Hopefully it's not just because the limo's not big enough.
Alan, thank you so much for coming back.
Dylan, I love you, man.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun.
Man, by the way, he was a great ball player, too.
Wow, I appreciate that.
Thanks again for listening. And just a reminder, if you enjoyed this interview, hit that subscribe button, leave me a review, and tell a friend. Today's Back to Beverly was recorded live in KBEV's Studio B on the campus of Beverly Hills High School and under the supervision of Media Director Romeo Carey. Directed by Colby Gilardian, crane operator and sound engineer Jason Maybaum, edited by Randy Curtis, produced by Dillon Curtis, and executive produced by Romeo Carey. If you haven't already, please subscribe to Back to Beverly on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube, and follow us on Facebook and Instagram. Till next time, I'm your host, Dillon Curtis, signing off.
Did you press record?